Kevin was tired of hearing the same wedding questions over and over. Are you excited? Got cold feet yet? Any last-minute jitters? Usually he had polite responses ready, but that afternoon he had realized something no fiancé should ever have to face. His soon-to-be wife, Amanda, had lost a bridesmaid just 2 weeks before the ceremony. People worried about missing rings or the flower girl backing out, but a missing bridesmaid? That was a twist Kevin didn't see coming. He had come home from his shift at the local tech company to find Amanda sprawled on the couch, phone in hand, frustration evident on her face. Her wavy dark hair, usually styled to perfection, was hastily pulled into a messy bun. An abandoned floral planner lay open on the coffee table, scribbled with check marks and question marks, clearly reflecting her state of panic. She was typically the calm one in their relationship, the type who could juggle work obligations, wedding plans, and a social life all at once with color-coded spreadsheets and digital reminders. But now, she looked ready to tear the pages out of her beloved planner. "Hey," Kevin greeted softly, setting his car keys on the coffee table. "Did something happen?" Amanda massaged her temples before looking up at him. "Megan just bailed on being a bridesmaid," she said, shaking her head. "It's not her fault exactly. She got a last-minute work opportunity overseas and can't say no. She left an apologetic voicemail, but it's still 2 weeks until the wedding. I don't know what to do, Kev." He sat beside her. "Okay, so we're down one bridesmaid. I'm sure we can find a friend to stand in, right?" Amanda let out a dry laugh. "You think it's that simple? Everyone's either already invited as a guest, or they live too far away to make it on such short notice. We have to keep the number of people in the bridal party balanced, and I can't just drag in a random acquaintance for that. This is a major headache." Kevin gave her a sympathetic smile. He squeezed her hand. He wanted to offer a solution, but what? Fewer bridesmaids? Rearrange the wedding photos so it wouldn't be obvious? That might work, but Amanda had her heart set on a symmetrical bridal party. Half joking, and in a moment he'd soon regret, Kevin shrugged. "I mean, you know who could fill in." He attempted a playful grin, hoping it would lighten her mood. "Kendra." He said it so casually that at first Amanda just stared, expression blank. Then a tiny smile tugged at her lips. "Kendra, huh?" She raised an eyebrow. "You think she'd say yes?" It was a silly reference to something deeply personal and private between them. Over the years, Kevin had quietly explored crossdressing now and then. Nothing extreme, mostly just at home, wearing comfortable women's clothing out of curiosity or for a sense of novelty. Amanda had discovered it early in their relationship in a fairly awkward manner, but after an initial bout of surprise, she'd been surprisingly relaxed about it. She teased him sometimes with Kendra, the name he half-jokingly gave that side of himself. But it had always remained a private joke, nothing either of them brought up around friends or family. "She might," Kevin replied, going along with the joke. "Though she's pretty busy." "Sure," Amanda joked back, though her eyes danced with a growing spark of mischief. "Too busy to save the day at our wedding?" They both laughed. Kevin got up to head to the kitchen, rummaging around for a snack to calm his stress. "Yes, probably. She's got better things to do than parading down the aisle in matching coral chiffon." Amanda's laughter died down. Kevin could tell she was thinking, really thinking. He saw her lips twitch. "But wait, what if you're on to something?" He shook his head immediately. "No way. I was kidding." Amanda stretched an arm over the back of the couch. "But it would solve the missing bridesmaid problem. And I have to admit, people have told me the bridesmaid dresses will fit a range of body types, so with some small alterations, it might not be impossible. Plus, no one outside of us has to know the truth. You could just be Kendra. It would be ridiculous, sure, but it would keep the balance for photos and the rehearsal. We can maintain the illusion as long as you're comfortable in a wig and some makeup." Kevin felt heat rise in his cheeks. "You're joking, right?" She arched her eyebrows in a way that let him know she was half serious. "I'm kind of desperate, but let's not jump to that extreme unless we have to." He forced a laugh, but internally, he suddenly had visions of himself in a dress, bouquet in hand, standing next to Amanda's friends in front of hundreds of guests. It was nightmarish. And yet, if Amanda really wanted to do this, could he say no? He tried to push that thought aside and hoped she'd find a different solution. 2 days passed. Kevin noticed that Amanda's frustration returned each evening as she scrolled her phone for potential bridesmaid replacements. Everyone was unavailable. He did his best to help, making calls and texting acquaintances, but absolutely no one was free to jump into such a big role at the last second. Every day that passed felt like a countdown to doom. Finally, on Friday morning, while he was finishing up at work, a notification popped up on his phone. It was from Amanda. "We need to talk, tonight." That message alone set his nerves on edge. He drove home slowly, half expecting her to greet him in tears or with some last resort. When he stepped through the door, he found her in the living room, carefully examining a website on her laptop. She took a deep breath. "I placed an order," she said. "Well, more like a rush order." He blinked. "For what?" "A bridesmaid dress. But the measurements, they're for you, Kevin." She paused, cheeks coloring. "I really did it." The room went silent. He felt his heart pounding, unsure if he should be annoyed or if he should laugh hysterically. "Amanda, you..." "What?" She offered a helpless smile. "Look, you did joke about it, and I know it sounded insane, but we tried everything else. If it's too weird, I'll think of something, I swear. But I just panicked. The wedding coordinator is freaking out that the lineup looks lopsided now, and you're the only person I trust. Or, well, Kendra is." He slumped onto the couch, face in his hands. "Are you sure there's literally no other way?" Amanda sat next to him. "Believe me, if there was, I'd do it. But we're out of time. It'll be chaos. But in a weird way, it could be kind of funny. Everyone will see you as this friend I have from college, someone they just never met. Then you can change and be yourself for the reception or whatever. We'll come up with a plan that isn't too humiliating." He glanced at her, feeling a swirl of emotions. Humiliating doesn't quite cover it. Amanda reached for his hand. "I'm sorry for putting you in this spot. You've been open about dressing up at home sometimes, and I never wanted to use that against you. But we're talking about one day, a few hours at most. We'll get a good wig, the dress will be fitted, and maybe we make a story about you being an old high school friend who moved away for a bit. My parents know you, so we'll have to distract them whenever Kendra is around." His mind spun with the practicalities. Your parents, my parents, our cousins, aunts, uncles, they'll notice. And how am I going to get from the men's side to the women's side without people asking questions? Amanda leaned forward intently. "We'll figure it out. Maybe you skip out on the rehearsal as Kevin. Just say you're busy with bachelor party preparations. Then Kendra shows up. And for the wedding day, we can keep you hidden in a separate room until it's time for the ceremony. The guests might wonder where you are, but we can claim you're helping with something behind the scenes. Then you pop out last minute as the groom. It'll be complicated, but we can ask your best man Toby to cover for you if anyone gets suspicious." The more she spoke, the crazier it sounded, but oddly, the more it began to seem feasible. He leaned his head back on the couch. "This is going to be the strangest wedding story ever told." Amanda laughed lightly. "But it'll be ours, and I promise, after we say our vows, no one has to know Kendra was ever there." He sighed. "When does the dress arrive?" "Tomorrow, by express shipping. Then we'll have to hurry and take it for alterations, because it's probably going to need a bit of adjusting." A strange mixture of dread and comedic resignation settled over him. He knew deep down he would do this for her. With the wedding so close, he couldn't let her stress overshadow everything. "Fine," he said softly, though his stomach was already in knots. "I'll do it, but only for you." "Thank you," Amanda breathed. "I swear we'll make it work." The next afternoon the doorbell rang, and there it was, a large box containing delicate coral chiffon. Amanda's eyes danced with excitement as she pulled the fabric from the packaging. "Oh, it's pretty," she said. "You're going to look great." She cut herself off, perhaps realizing how odd that sentence sounded. Kevin stood across from her, arms folded, lips set in a grim line. "Yeah, wonderful," he quipped. "Every groom's dream." After lunch, they went to the tailor Amanda trusted for her bridal gown. The small shop was run by a cheerful older woman named Margaret, who had known Amanda's family for ages. Usually, Margaret handled wedding attire for the entire bridal party. Amanda had been bringing her bridesmaids in for weeks, but Kevin had never expected to become one of them. "Ah, so this is—" Margaret, who wore half-rimmed glasses on a chain, squinted curiously when Kevin walked in, carrying the dress over his arm. "Pardon me, dear, but you must be—" "Hi," Amanda cut in smoothly, plastering on a friendly smile. "This is Kendra. She's helping out last minute as a bridesmaid." Kevin tried not to make eye contact. He mumbled a greeting, keeping his voice low. Margaret glanced up and down, clearly noticing Kevin's height. "Well, I'll do my best to make this dress fit just right. Let's take some measurements." In the fitting room, Kevin stood stiffly while Margaret measured his shoulders and waist. He wore a simple t-shirt and jeans, but in no time she was draping the coral dress over him to see how much they needed to adjust. The mirror reflected a sight that made Kevin's heart pound uncomfortably. A tall, slightly athletic figure in pastel chiffon, the material obviously not pinned or shaped yet. He felt a sense of unreality, half of him wanting to bolt. But Amanda, standing nearby, kept encouraging him, muttering that it was going to be fine. Margaret, taking everything in stride, reassured them that a few nips and tucks would make this possible. "All right," Margaret announced after setting some pins. "We'll need to shorten the straps, tighten the waist, maybe add a bit of padding in the chest area so you match the other girls. Should be no problem, though. You'll look as lovely as any bridesmaid." Kevin swallowed. Amanda coughed, turning away so she could hide her awkward grin. When they left the shop, Amanda squeezed Kevin's arm in gratitude. "I'm sorry you had to go through that, and Margaret's such a sweetheart, but I know that was uncomfortable for you." He shrugged, trying to play it cool. "It's fine. Let's just get this done." Amanda gave him a grateful smile, and for a moment, despite the absurdity, Kevin felt a strange closeness with her. They were both a little insane to go through with this, but at least they were in it together. Days passed with frantic scheduling. Kevin tried to keep his job responsibilities on track while sneaking out for final fittings and a wig consultation. Amanda took him to a hair and makeup specialist for a crash course in styling. That part was deeply embarrassing for him. He'd never worn more than a dab of foundation or eyeliner in private moments at home. Now a professional makeup artist was shaping his brows, applying blush, and testing lipstick shades to see which complemented the coral dress. And the wig. A layered, shoulder-length wig that Amanda picked out, claiming it suited his face shape. The result was almost convincing in a quick glance, if he were standing among a group. But it was hardly perfect. Kevin feared that anyone who looked too closely might notice something off in an instant. The makeup artist gave him lessons: how to apply eyeliner, how to style the wig so it looked natural. Every brush stroke felt surreal. Meanwhile, the rest of the wedding party was buzzing with final plans. Toby, Kevin's best friend and best man, seemed perplexed by Kevin's sporadic availability. One evening, Toby cornered him at the bar after Kevin dodged a group dinner with the groomsmen. "Dude, are you avoiding me?" Toby asked, a playful grin on his face but genuine concern in his eyes. "You vanish whenever we try to get the group together. Wedding stress? Talk to me." Kevin considered telling him the truth, but that felt too risky. Toby was good at keeping secrets, but this was next level. Kevin couldn't imagine Toby's reaction if he said, "Actually, I'm moonlighting as a bridesmaid in my own wedding." Instead, Kevin tried to sound casual. "I'm swamped with last-minute errands, helping Amanda, you know. She's on edge." Toby nodded, sipping his drink. "All right, man. I just hope you're not missing out on your own fun before the wedding. The bachelor party is next weekend. Don't forget. I want to make sure you're there." Kevin tried for an easy laugh, though internally he remembered that the bachelorette party was also next weekend. That meant Kendra might be expected to show up for it. The thought of attending that party in a dress, hearing all the female gossip about the wedding, while simultaneously missing his own bachelor party, was enough to make his stomach clench. He'd have to coordinate with Amanda so he could at least slip away at some point to show face as the groom. The day before the parties, Kevin and Amanda sat at the dining table with her laptop and an array of sticky notes. Each sticky note represented a time block during the weekend. They were attempting to plan out how Kevin could be present for the start of the bachelor party as himself, then sneak away, change into Kendra, and appear for the bachelorette party. "This is madness," Amanda muttered, drawing arrows between the blocks of time. "But we'll try. If you show up to Toby's party right at the beginning, stay for an hour, then say you have some emergency to handle, like a problem with the caterer. Maybe Toby won't think twice. Then you can slip over to the lounge where we'll be having the bachelorette party. Stay with us long enough to make an appearance. Then maybe you can switch back to Kevin if the guys wonder where you are." Kevin stared at the plan, feeling an impending headache. "People are going to notice I'm missing. Toby is no fool." Amanda shrugged. "We'll do our best to keep everyone's attention scattered. My party has at least 8 bridesmaids. Well, 7 plus you, plus a bunch of my girlfriends. If you arrive a bit late, they'll just think you're some friend from out of town. I'll vouch for you." He let out a slow breath. "All right, let's at least try. Maybe Toby's crew will be so busy having fun that they won't pay much attention." That weekend, the plan played out more or less as designed, though not without hiccups. Kevin's bachelor party started off in an energetic sports bar, with Toby orchestrating silly drinking games. Kevin tried to blend in, but his mind was elsewhere. He kept glancing at his phone to check the time. After about an hour, he feigned an apologetic phone call, told Toby he'd be right back, and then ducked out. In a cramped, single-stall bathroom in the bar's hallway, Kevin changed clothes. It was an odd sense of déjà vu. The wig came out of a small duffel bag, along with subtle makeup supplies. He slipped on a blouse and skirt. Nothing quite as formal as the bridesmaid dress, but definitely feminine. He had even shaved his legs that morning, something he'd never expected to do for any reason other than pure whim. Now, it was borderline mandatory to avoid suspicion. It was a rush job, and he felt extremely self-conscious stepping outside, hoping the heels he wore wouldn't make him tower too awkwardly. He had parked a second car around the corner so he could drive separately to the lounge. But as luck would have it, the moment he stepped onto the street, Toby emerged from the bar to greet an incoming friend. Kevin froze for a split second. Toby's eyes flicked his way, but there was no recognition. He just glanced at Kevin like any stranger in heels and kept talking to his friend. Kevin exhaled in relief. He arrived at the bachelorette party, which was happening in the private room of a stylish cocktail lounge. Music pulsed, and the group was lively. Amanda spotted him and shot him a grin that was part amusement, part apology. Immediately, a cluster of her girlfriends pulled Kendra into a flurry of introductions and small talk. Kevin tried his best to giggle when appropriate, to keep his voice a bit higher, and to nod along as wedding gossip flew around him. At one point, a friend named Linda, who was apparently quite talkative, grabbed his arm. "So, how do you know Amanda again? She said you're an old friend, right?" Kevin coughed, clearing his throat. Yeah, from high school," he managed, his voice soft. "We reconnected recently." Linda smiled, clearly already tipsy. "That's so sweet. I love that she's still got friends from back in the day. Hey, you should come with us next weekend for a spa day, if you're free." Kevin gave a weak chuckle. "I'll have to see." Nearby, Amanda was red-faced with laughter, though she tried to hide it behind her drink. She mouthed a silent, "I owe you," and Kevin smirked. As the night wore on, Kevin noticed a swirl of conversations about wedding details and inside jokes about Amanda's college years. Every now and then, they'd look to Kendra for a reaction. Kevin felt unbelievably awkward, but found himself partially amused at the same time. He learned more about certain bachelorette party traditions than he ever thought he would, like the silly dares they had in mind and the conversation about Amanda's honeymoon lingerie. One friend leaned into Kevin, giggling, "Don't tell Kevin, but we got Amanda this little piece of—" Kevin quickly held up a hand. "Oh, I won't say a word," he assured her, trying to hide his flushed face. Eventually, he excused himself, saying he had to leave early, using a vague early flight excuse. Amanda gave him a quick hug, whispering, "You're a champ," in his ear. The moment Kevin walked out the lounge door, he felt like he could finally breathe again. He dashed to the side street, swapped back to his old clothes in the car, wiped off as much makeup as he could with the remover Amanda had given him, and hurried back to Toby's party. By then, some of the crowd was too far gone on drinks to notice he'd been missing, but Toby arched an eyebrow the moment Kevin returned. "Everything okay?" Toby asked. Kevin forced a grin. "Crisis with the wedding caterer," he lied. "But we're all good now." "Okay, well, we're heading to the arcade next. You coming?" Toby asked, slapping Kevin's shoulder. Kevin sighed in relief. "Yeah, sure. Let's go." Though the rest of the night remained a bit stressful, Kevin felt a sense of triumphant relief that neither party had discovered his double identity. He was still on track for the big day, though the final act, walking down the aisle as a bridesmaid, loomed ahead like the ultimate test. The wedding rehearsal arrived. Family members were starting to gather in town. The schedule called for the bridal party to walk through the steps in the church, ensuring no one messed up the processional or recessional. That evening, Kevin found himself in a cramped office at the church, pinned in by multiple garment bags. Amanda was doing last-minute instructions on how to move in the dress. She was trying to keep them both from freaking out. "You good?" she asked as Kevin struggled to zip up the dress behind him. "I might suffocate," he joked, turning to look at himself in the small mirror. The coral dress was snug, but the alterations had been well done, giving him a defined waistline. The wig was pinned securely, and a light dusting of makeup softened his features. He felt a tug of anxiety. One or two bridesmaids had seen him in partial disguise, but some had never met Kendra. He didn't want them to notice anything amiss. Amanda gave him a once-over. "All right, shoes on?" He slipped into the matching coral shoes. "Done." She squeezed his hand. "We'll practice, then you can sneak out the side door and change back into your normal clothes. The minister just wants to make sure everyone knows where to stand. Then we'll have the dinner. You can skip that part as Kendra. Just be there as Kevin." Kevin nodded, bracing himself. "Let's do it." They headed down the hallway. Most of the bridal party had assembled near the altar. The moment Kevin entered, a wave of attention fell on him. Several of Amanda's friends offered big smiles, showing acceptance toward this new bridesmaid. The groomsmen looked on from their side, some with curious glances. Kevin felt sweat bead at his temples, and he kept his head slightly turned to avoid direct eye contact with his father-in-law, who stood in the back. If Amanda's dad recognized Kevin, the ruse would be over in an instant. The minister, an older gentleman with a calm voice, asked everyone to line up in pairs. The plan was to have the groomsmen escort the bridesmaids down the aisle. Kevin ended up being paired with Jeff, a tall cousin of Amanda's he barely knew. Jeff offered a polite smile. "Ready, Kendra?" He said it in a courteous tone, extending an arm. Kevin swallowed. "Sure," he managed, hooking an arm around Jeff's. They walked slowly down the aisle, the minister pointing out marks on the floor. Kevin's heart hammered. Every step in those heels felt precarious, and the entire time he was aware that just a turn of Jeff's head could reveal a full view of Kevin's face. Jeff might see a hint of stubble under the makeup or notice something about his features, but Jeff didn't seem suspicious. Once they reached the altar, Kevin did as instructed, stepping off to one side. The minister smiled. "Bridesmaids, keep your flowers at waist level. Gentle smile, not too forced. Then once you reach the altar, step to the side, facing the congregation. Groomsmen do the same, but on the other side." They practiced twice more. Kevin's nerves slowly stabilized, though his calves ached in the unfamiliar heels. The rest of the bridal party seemed to accept Kendra easily. Some chatted with him about mundane topics, like the color scheme or the music the bride had chosen. Kevin responded with short answers, trying to keep his voice as unrecognizable as possible. Finally, the rehearsal ended. The minister clapped his hands. "Wonderful job, everyone. Tomorrow we'll gather at 2 p.m. for the real deal. Let's all remember these positions. Now let's head over to the rehearsal dinner, yes?" Kevin hung back, letting the others file out. Amanda made an excuse that she needed to talk to the organist, dragging Kendra along with her. They slipped out a side door, made a beeline for a vacant Sunday school room, and locked the door. Kevin tore the wig off and replaced it with a baseball cap. Then he slipped out of the coral dress, quickly stuffing it into a garment bag. Amanda gave him a grateful smile. "You were perfect. That was terrifying, but you handled it." His heart was still racing. "I just hope no one in your family recognized me." She patted him on the back. "It'll be easier tomorrow with all the chaos. Everyone will be busy focusing on the bride and groom." That night at the rehearsal dinner, Kevin sat with Toby, who teased him about being absent from part of the rehearsal. Kevin claimed he'd been in traffic. Then they made small talk about the honeymoon. Kevin caught glimpses of Amanda's father, who was giving a toast at the front. He also noticed some of the bridesmaids glancing around, likely wondering where Kendra had vanished. He tried to avoid thinking about tomorrow, the big reveal, or rather, the big deception, the wedding day. At the end of the night, Amanda and Kevin stood by their cars in the parking lot. The moonlight cast a soft glow. She looked tired but determined. "We're in the home stretch, Kev," she said, giving him a hug. "Tomorrow is it. Then we can put this entire fiasco behind us." He returned the hug, feeling a surge of affection. "I know. Let's just get through it. And hey, after this, we'll have the funniest wedding story to tell each other when we're old." She laughed. "I'm sure we will." Morning arrived, the day of the wedding. Kevin woke up on a friend's couch since Amanda stayed with her family. It was a tradition that the bride and groom shouldn't see each other before the ceremony. That tradition was thoroughly broken, of course, because Kendra was expected to be with Amanda. But no one would suspect anything if they followed the old rules in spirit. The plan was simple and extremely stressful. Amanda's mother had reserved a separate hotel suite for the bridesmaids to get ready. Kevin would have to sneak in last. Amanda had informed her mother that Kendra was staying at another friend's place and would arrive a bit later. Kevin, for his part, had to coordinate with Toby so that no one panicked about the missing groom. Toby believed Kevin was just arriving at the church early to finalize details with the photographer. At 9 a.m., Kevin arrived at the hotel suite. He wore jeans and a baggy hoodie, carrying a large backpack that contained everything: undergarments, the bridesmaid dress, makeup, wig, shoes, the works. Amanda answered the door and pulled him in quickly, whispering, "Everyone else is in the main room. We have a small bedroom off to the side for you." He slipped into that bedroom, heart pounding. The next hour was a blur. Amanda hustled in and out, helping Kevin with foundation, fake lashes, hair adjustments. He slipped into shapewear to smooth things out. The coral dress went on, and together they zipped it up. Amanda's mother knocked on the door once, asking if anyone needed help. Amanda opened a crack and said something about Kendra needing a few extra minutes. Kevin held his breath until she left. By noon, Kevin was fully transformed. Kendra emerged from the bedroom. The suite smelled of perfume and hairspray. 7 other bridesmaids milled around, each in a matching coral dress, each with their hair styled in elegant updos or curls. They turned and greeted Kevin with bright smiles. None seemed suspicious. One even complimented his shoes. Kevin felt a bizarre sense of camaraderie, as if they were all in this group ordeal together, primping for the big day. Except he was the groom, wearing false eyelashes and a chest padded with soft inserts. Amanda's mother bustled around, camera in hand. "Let's get a picture of the bridesmaids," she insisted. "I need all of you in front of the window. The lighting is perfect." Kevin's blood ran cold. A photograph? With him in it? But there was no polite way to refuse. The other bridesmaids lined up, beaming. Amanda's mother gestured for Kevin to stand on one end. He managed a small smile, hoping the angle or the glare would obscure his features. The camera clicked several times. Kevin was sure this photo would haunt him forever. Soon, it was time to head to the church. Amanda left in a limo with her parents. The bridesmaids followed in another vehicle. Kevin was wedged between Linda and a girl named Becky, who were chatting about how excited they were for Amanda to finally marry her amazing fiancé. Kevin offered polite nods, trying not to break into nervous laughter. When they arrived at the church, they slipped into a large side room behind the sanctuary. The plan was to wait there until the ceremony started. Meanwhile, Toby and the groomsmen were in the groom's lounge on the other side of the church, presumably waiting for Kevin to arrive any minute. Kevin knew Toby was likely texting him, asking where he was. He had to ignore those messages. The minutes ticked by. Amanda's father came by to check on the bridesmaids, telling them the ceremony was starting soon. Kevin panicked, certain Amanda's father might recognize him. But Amanda quickly guided her father out of the room, exclaiming something about no peeking at the dresses. Kevin breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, the coordinator came in with the lineup instructions. The music would begin, each bridesmaid would walk down the aisle, and then Amanda would enter with her father. Kevin would have to remain in place, parted from the other bridesmaids at the altar. He'd slip out a side entrance right after he reached the front, giving him time to run around the building, ditch the dress, and reappear in his tux as Kevin, the groom. It was the most nerve-wracking costume change of his life. The ceremony began. The first bridesmaid walked down the aisle, the soft notes of a classical piece floating through the air. Another followed. Kevin was near the end. The corridor outside the sanctuary felt cold. Adrenaline pumped through him. Linda, in front of him, turned and whispered, "Wish me luck," in a playful tone. Kevin forced a grin. "You'll do great." She stepped forward. The coordinator gave Kevin a nod, and he took a deep breath. With shaky legs, he walked into the church. Rows of guests turned their heads. He was sure some would notice a tall bridesmaid with slightly broader shoulders, but the dim lighting at the entrance, plus the distance, might help. He held the bouquet at his waist, remembering the minister's instructions. All around, he caught glimpses of familiar faces, relatives, friends from college, even co-workers. He dared not linger on any. He kept his gaze fixed on the altar. Up ahead stood the groomsmen, lined up. Toby was there, scanning the aisle. Kevin locked eyes with Toby, then quickly averted his gaze. He was grateful Toby probably wouldn't recognize him from that distance. Upon reaching the altar, Kevin stepped aside, forming a line with the other bridesmaids. The pastor waited at the front. Kevin felt his heart pounding against the dress's bodice. Soon, the doors at the back opened, and Amanda entered on her father's arm. She looked radiant, her gown flowing around her. Kevin's emotions rose as he watched his bride walk down the aisle, even from the vantage point of a bridesmaid. When Amanda reached the altar, the music shifted. Kevin knew this was his cue to vanish. With a careful sidestep, he slipped behind one bridesmaid, then another, pivoting toward a small side door that led to a hallway. The guests' attention was on Amanda and the minister, so no one noticed Kendra leaving. The moment he cleared the threshold into the hallway, he broke into a hurried walk, heels clacking on the floor. Another corridor led him to a tiny antechamber. There he'd stashed a garment bag containing his tux, along with makeup remover wipes. He kicked off the heels. Shaking fingers tugged at the zipper of the bridesmaid dress. The minutes felt like seconds. The ceremony was underway. People would notice if the groom wasn't at the front soon. He peeled off the dress and threw on his tux shirt, buttoning it with trembling hands. The wig came off next, hairnet and all, stuffed unceremoniously into a bag. He used wipes to remove as much foundation as possible, glancing at a handheld mirror. His face was slightly pink, but hopefully no one would notice in the frantic moment. He ran a comb through his hair, which he had kept short enough that no one had questioned him wearing a wig earlier. Then he pulled on the tux jacket, slid into dress shoes, and took a deep breath. Ready or not, he had to get out there. He hustled down the hallway, rounding the corner that led to the back of the sanctuary. The wedding coordinator saw him and waved him forward. "Where have you been?" she hissed. "Had to fix a tie issue," he mumbled, trying not to look guilty. She gave him a skeptical glance but motioned him to the side. They'd arranged for him to enter from the back, as if he'd been waiting with Toby. He stepped carefully, face flushed, praying no one would think it odd that the groom was slipping in at this stage. He approached Toby, who frowned in confusion but quickly forced a grin. Under his breath, Toby whispered, "Dude, you cutting it close?" Kevin whispered back, "Long story. Let's just do this." They took their positions. Amanda was standing at the altar, her arms slipping away from her father's. The minister welcomed everyone. Kevin moved to join her, taking her hand. She gave him a tiny, mischievous smile, as if to say, "You made it." The ceremony proceeded. Vows were exchanged, rings presented. Kevin found himself trembling, not just from the memory of the day's insanity, but from genuine emotion. Amanda's eyes glistened with tears of joy. They repeated their promises, to stand by each other in all circumstances, for better or worse. Kevin couldn't help but think about how they'd already proven that, in a bizarre way, by enduring this wild plot. At last, the minister announced them husband and wife. Cheers and applause erupted. Kevin kissed Amanda, heart pounding with love and relief. The organ music swelled, and they turned to face the congregation. Cameras flashed. Kevin's family and Amanda's family both beamed with pride. They walked arm in arm down the aisle to the triumphant recessional music. The bridesmaids and groomsmen followed behind. Kevin risked a glance at the line of bridesmaids. His eyes landed on the coral dress he had just been wearing moments ago, now occupied by a placeholder he didn't recognize. It took him a moment to realize that was impossible, until he saw Linda behind that figure, giving the new girl a pat on the shoulder. Kevin's mind whirled. Was there an eighth bridesmaid that Amanda had quietly recruited to slip in as Kendra after he left? Or was it possible that was an extra friend stepping in to keep the line consistent for the exit? He almost did a double take, but Amanda nudged him forward. Outside the church, the bright sun illuminated a cheering crowd. Rice or confetti wasn't allowed, so the guests held small bubbles they blew into the air. Kevin and Amanda laughed as they navigated through the swirl of fluttering bursts. Toby and the groomsmen whooped and patted Kevin on the back, all shouting congratulations. The bridesmaids, real and questionable, formed a line, hugging Amanda and squealing. While group photos were arranged, Kevin marveled at how no one seemed suspicious. Photographers posed the couple, the bridal party, parents, relatives. The bridesmaids lined up for pictures with Amanda, and Kevin realized he was expected to stand with the groomsmen as Kevin. That meant Kendra was missing. But apparently, the staff had no problem with a slightly off-count group shot because the day was hectic, or perhaps Amanda had arranged for an extra person to stand in. The photographer directed them through various angles and combinations, leaving Kevin dizzy but thankful the ruse was holding. After about an hour, the wedding party headed to a reception hall not far away. Music, dancing, and a buffet dinner awaited. Kevin and Amanda sat at the head table, exhausted but overjoyed. Speeches were given. Toby roasted Kevin in a humorous speech about their college escapades, oblivious that the biggest secret had happened under his nose. The maid of honor gave a heartfelt tribute to Amanda's kindness and generosity, finishing with a toast. The bridesmaids clinked glasses. Kevin briefly wondered which bridesmaid was wearing the coral dress meant for him, but from his vantage point, he couldn't pinpoint anything unusual. Maybe Amanda's last-minute recruit had done a fine job. Later, Kevin seized a moment with Amanda by the chocolate fountain. He leaned in, speaking low so no one else could hear. "You pulled a switch, didn't you?" She grinned conspiratorially. "Yesterday, I reached out to an acquaintance who was on standby just in case. Didn't want the lineup to look suspicious when you left mid-ceremony." He exhaled a breath of relief and fascination. "You planned that behind my back?" She shrugged, smirking. "What can I say? I'm thorough. I didn't want you to worry about how to exit the altar. So once you left, I texted my stand-in. She came through a side door and joined the others for the recessional. No one questioned it." He shook his head, amazed. "We're officially insane, but I guess it worked." Amanda flashed him a radiant smile, then looped her arms around his neck. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," he replied, feeling a wave of gratitude that this incredible woman was now his wife. The remainder of the reception went on like any successful wedding celebration. Laughter, dancing, cutting the cake, and endless well wishes. Family members congratulated Kevin and Amanda, praising the ceremony. None of them seemed to suspect a thing. Kevin and Amanda mingled with guests, carefully deflecting questions about the bridesmaid that no one recognized, claiming she was an old friend who had traveled far. Some relatives looked curious, but no one pushed too hard. At one point, Kevin wandered by the corner where the bridesmaids were chatting. Becky spotted him and giggled. "Kevin, we finally meet the groom," she teased, playing along with the notion that they hadn't spent any time together before. He gave a polite smile, taking care not to give away that he'd stood among them only hours ago. As the evening wore on, guests began filtering out. Kevin found a quiet moment on a balcony overlooking a small garden. He leaned against the railing, letting the night breeze cool his flushed skin. The music drifted softly from inside. He reflected on how the day had unfolded. The panic of the wedding gown, the hush-hush transformations, the unsuspecting guests. It was absurd and chaotic, yet strangely unifying. He and Amanda had tackled it as a pair, forging a deeper bond in the process. Just then, Amanda stepped onto the balcony, still in her white gown, though her veil was now draped over her arm. She rested a hand on Kevin's back, peering up at the stars. "We did it," she said quietly. "We actually pulled it off." He looked at her, feeling a rush of warmth. "And now we can relax," he murmured. "No more elaborate costume changes, no more hush-hush scurrying." She turned, smiling. "You know, part of me almost wishes we could share the story with everyone. They'd be shocked and probably amused." He chuckled. "Let's keep it between us for now. We can decide if we ever want to reveal it. Maybe on a big anniversary we'll spill the beans and watch everyone's jaws drop." Amanda laughed. "Deal." They stood there for a long moment, the stars twinkling overhead. The new ring on Kevin's finger felt heavier than he expected, but it was a welcome weight. Their wedding might have been unorthodox, bordering on unbelievable, but it was undoubtedly theirs. The cross-dressing, the near misses, the comedic drama, all of it had given them a day they would never forget. The door behind them opened, revealing Toby, who poked his head out. "Hey, you two, the DJ's about to do the couple's final dance. You up for it?" Kevin glanced at Amanda, nodding. "Absolutely." Toby grinned, then vanished back inside. Amanda looped her arm around Kevin's. As they walked back into the reception hall, the lights dimmed and a gentle melody began to play. The guests gathered in a circle, holding up candles or phone lights, giving the dance floor a soft glow. Kevin took Amanda's hand, and they swayed slowly in the center. This was the moment he'd dreamed about, holding his bride under the low lights, friends and family watching with affection. For an instant, he flashed back to wearing the coral dress, feeling the pinches from the altered seams. He almost laughed at the memory. He felt Amanda's hand tighten around his as if reading his thoughts. She pressed her cheek against his shoulder and sighed contentedly. When the song ended, applause erupted once more. Kevin leaned forward, kissed Amanda's forehead, and they left the floor hand in hand. Outside the hall, they slipped into a waiting car that would take them to their wedding night hotel. The driver closed the door. Kevin felt exhaustion sink in, but also a heady thrill. They were finally husband and wife, with an insane secret they'd share forever. Inside the car, Amanda let out a relieved breath. No more dress changes, no more worry about who's noticing what, just us, heading off to start our new life. Kevin nodded, loosening his tie. Thank goodness. Though part of me thinks we should keep that bridesmaid dress as a souvenir. Maybe we'll frame it. Amanda giggled, leaning her head on his shoulder. We'll think about it. Kevin wrapped an arm around her, and together they gazed out at the passing lights of the city. Despite all the complications, the tangled web of disguises, and the comedic near disasters, the day had ended exactly as they'd hoped. They were married, bound by a vow, and a story they would reminisce about for years. No wedding was ever perfect, but theirs had a hidden layer of mischief and closeness. As the car glided along the road, Kevin felt Amanda's warmth by his side, and he realized that, even though it was madcap and exhausting, he wouldn't change a moment of it. It was the best day of his life, coral chiffon and all.
Did you like the story? Hit that like button and tell me what you thought in the comments. Do you want to hear more stories? Subscribe and hit the bell. For exclusive content and early access, check out our Patreon. You can find the link in the description, or you can watch any of the videos shown on my right. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.